Hi there, Timothy Linsdale, video producer, Christian, and also something I haven't mentioned too often. I'm a Boy Scout. Do a lot of work with Scouts. But anyway, let's get on to the subject of the day. We're putting on our hat for civics and science about our electricity and solar power. Like and comment on my videos, subscribe to my channel, that'd be terrific. Yeah, I see in the San Diego Union Tribune, says high voltage battle looms over rooftop solar power. When these things start out, they usually start out small, such as solar power, and don't have that big effect on utilities or other people until it starts to become sizable and noticeable. And this apparently seems to be what's happening. There's a battle in California over who gets the renewable power, how much it is, and so forth. So those all become contentions we have to deal with. I've taken time to read a couple of articles to try to understand better what this means, or these different phrases and words, and what they amount to. Recently, California reached a milestone of 1 million homes that have rooftop solar power on them. And that was Governor Brown and Governor Schwarzenegger's big goal to have that happen. So now that it's reaching that size, other issues start to come up. Advocates from both sides go at each other for one reason or another. Just trying to understand what that's all about. For one thing, in California, electricity rates are some of the highest in the country, if not the highest. And San Diego is where I live. San Diego Gas and Electric is the highest. So we know how the issue we have to deal with. But one of the advantages to California is we have a lot of warm weather, especially Southern California. And the nearer are you to the beach, the less issue you have to put up with heat. So we're in an area in this county. I live in a big county, San Diego County. And nearer you are to the beach, the less air conditioning you have to use or have. And the farther east you go, it gets hotter, and especially in the summer. And you know, to make it comfortable, you need air conditioning, and that's expensive, using that expensive power. So it's a wide-ranging issue in our county, depending on where you're located. We're only about 3 miles from the beach, so it's a very temperate climate. We rarely need air conditioning. Ceiling fans, you know, in our house do the job pretty well. It has to be pretty hot not to be comfortable. Now those in the desert areas and inland, it can get really hot in the summer, so that becomes an issue for them. Well, one of the arguments that's coming along is net metering. Net metering is those that have solar are only paying for the energy beyond the energy their solar panels are producing. That's the best I can understand it. The other thing is cost shifting. Now, from the best I understand this, is that people, if you have solar panels, they send power back into the grid. Now, I've heard different things on this. One of them is if the utility doesn't need the power, they're not going to pay you the subsidy available unless they need it. And here's another part to this, is the power that the solar panel sends back into the grid is purchased on a retail level, not a wholesale level. Well, that means that the individual owning the solar panels are getting more money than the wholesale cost of electricity. And that's starting to create a real problem for utilities because it's starting to cost them more and more. Now, where does that money come from that costs them more and more? Everybody else on the grid, all of us. It's spread out, and our electricity continues to go up. So in a sense, it's nice that someone's put solar panels up for climate change, being green, and also mostly to lower their electricity costs. I would say money is the reason for everyone to be concerned. That's what affects everyone, is the cost of things. Yes, being a good steward of the land is good, but you have to be able to pay for it. And that's a big issue. But it's called cost shifting. basically those who own the solar panels are cost shifting their cost of electricity onto those who don't have those solar panels. Now, when you're retired and the old excuse of fixed income, you don't. It's difficult to come up with the $20,000-$25,000, whatever it is, to put solar panels on your roof. It varies. It depends on how many you put up there, who does it. There are multiple issues with doing that. When I listen to advertisements for solar companies, many of them say we are also roofing contractors, or we have our favorite roofing contractor, to make sure when they put the solar panels on your roof, they don't wreck your roof and it leaks, which does happen. There are multiple issues with solar panels. The same with the big grid projects, such as we have in the Mojave Desert here, massive solar fields. Number one, if these things are mostly made out of plastic, how are we going to deal with the issue of them eventually failing and having to be recycled? Windmills. You can drive through the windmill fields in areas of the desert, and you'll see a number of them that aren't running. And why is that? Because they can't afford to repair them regularly. So it's a money issue here constantly. We think this stuff is free, but it's not. I mean, you look up and, okay, the sun is there most of the time, not always. This is why batteries are becoming a big deal, because the sun's not always there, so where are you going to get the electricity from? Now, everybody, almost everybody, even though you have solar panels, is hooked up to the grid. So, yes, you do have access to that electricity, but it's going to be expensive. So, there you are. Recently, they did a system in San Diego Gas and Electric where you can use the most of your power at certain times of the day is either more or less, depending on the time of day. So, if you can plan that out, it does save on your bill. It does us, because we're retired, home a lot. We can adjust to it. Those working, it's going to be much harder. So the argument goes on between advocates of solar for, say, climate change. Maybe there are advocates for the cost. I hope there is. And there's varying groups. There's academics that say, explain the environmental issues. Other academics that say this system doesn't pencil out to be affordable. And like I said before, when you're selling electricity back, you're selling at retail value. And the utility is having to buy that electricity at wholesale rates. So they're paying you retail prices while they're having to buy it wholesale. I'm not sure that quite makes sense, but where I'm trying to go with that. But anyway, that's one of the reasons they have the cost shifting issue, because they're buying electricity from the solar panel owners at retail and not wholesale. So that's one of the big arguments that retail utilities are having. Advocates say one of the reasons that utilities want to build these massive solar fields in the desert, or these big wind power generations, is it's cheaper, and it is. It's cheaper doing that massive size to produce electricity than to try to produce enough electricity off of homes with these solar panels. It pencils out that's cheaper per kilowatt to do those massive fields versus homes. And right now, even with 1 million homes having solar panels, it's probably somewhere between 5 to 6-7% of all homes in California that actually have them. So long ways to go on that note. So it's an ongoing issue. It's kind of complicated. I was trying to come up with some decent answers for you here, but it seems the utilities argument is that they're buying retail electricity instead of wholesale electricity when they buy it from solar panel owners. As I said before, there's multiple issues with the solar panels, such as disposal. The production of them require toxic chemicals. All of these are issues that have to be dealt with. So I'm going to continue to study some of this. One of the things that advocates for solar on your house make the point that utility companies like to produce the big grid systems because they have to put in the long transmission lines, which gives them more excuse to charge more money, because all of these utilities have fixed costs. The transmission lines, people to take care of them, lawyers when they're in trouble with fires, all the people that work for them, all these are fixed costs they have to deal with. Whether they buying the electricity wholesale or retail. So I'm hoping you get something out of that. Look up on these issues on the internet. Newspaper article isn't too bad. It's more into, the newspaper article I think is more into advocates versus opponents of these systems. But that's a big change. A lot can happen. People saying, why don't we put them in all buildings and houses? And that's something California is trying to do on new construction, all solar. But as we go, you're going to have more and more consumption of electricity, such as water heater, electric versus gas, cars becoming electric. All of them consume more electricity. So this becomes a monster after a while, and people don't seem to be projecting very well on this. They're only projecting as advocates. So, like so many other things, the argument goes on. Be a good steward of the land and what you have, and do the best you can. Like and comment in this video, subscribe to this channel. Get out there, look, learn, see what you can find out, and make it a great day.